Hello everybody one more time. Thank you all for coming. This is Marijana Smolčec, eTwinning moderator of the Inclusive Education Group. I have a guest speaker next to me here because we are colleagues and we are working together. This is the second time Helena, say hi Helena.
Hello everybody.
This is the second time Helena has joined me to be a guest speaker for our group. I think this is a very interesting and important topic because especially at the beginning of the school year, most of us are under a lot of stress, not to mention during the whole year. So she is going to talk about an interesting topic, share some things that you might know, but also some interesting insights into how to deal with problems. She will mention even the social network sites, but this doesn't mean you can't be a part of them. The point is that we need to know how to adjust our time and be able to say no. So I'm going to leave that to her. Just few insights about Helena. So she is a school psychologist. She's my colleague. She also teaches psychology, and she is a constant lifelong learner because one of the things she's doing now, she's attending a seminar or a course to become a cognitive behavior therapist educator. At the moment, she's a trainee, but she knows a lot. And I hope this will not just help you, but also all of the colleagues in my school. Soon I'm going to start the presentation. So you will notice that there is Q&A below the presentation. Please leave us the real questions under the Q&A below the presentation. While if you want to chit chat in the chat under the attendees list, you are welcome. Helena will not be able to answer any questions now at the moment. Maybe we do answer some, during the talk, but unfortunately she has such a tight schedule and she has to leave very soon as the webinar is over. But she is very open and she told me that if you have any questions, do write them down and we will answer them as soon as possible within the group, which would be a nice summary of everything we have done today here. So without further ado, let me just say everybody one more time, welcome to the 15th, I would say again, annual webinar by the eTwinning Inclusive Education Group. I always invite Helen, so in 5 webinars she will come on for the 20th because, she was one of the presenters for the 10th webinar. So, okay, let's start. Let's see what Helena has to say and I will start the recording.
Hello, once again. At the beginning, I would like to tell you that I'm not a great English speaker, so I hope you will understand me. I will try to talk slowly, and I believe the messages that and the topics that I will be talking about here will be useful to you. So this is the title of our subject today, Prevention of the Occupational Stress Among Teachers. What is prevention? Prevention is actually everything that we can do and be careful that stress doesn't even develop. Of course, that's not something that is possible and sometimes we will experience some stress, but it's important to plan how to avoid some big stress. So, at the beginning of every school year, teachers make a lot of plans. And we all have a lot of experience in this. So today we will talk about one more plan, but this plan will be plan of prevention. So I suggest that we start. I would like you to take one paper and to take a pen and maybe to do some notes during this webinar. And at the end, if you are okay with it, I would like you to send me some snapshots of it, or maybe photograph or something, so I can do a bit of analyze, maybe for the 20th webinar, like Marijana said.
Yes.
And I'm also very glad that I can be a part of this 15th webinar in this group. So let's start. How do I go to the next? Okay, I'm sorry. I have to learn how to change the slides. So, this is a list of predictors of stress. There is 16 sentences. I would like you to read one by one and write yes or no. So, I get angry easily. If you estimate that you get angry easily, write yes, and write no if you don't agree with this. So let's start with this. So do it on your paper. I get angry easily. I'm a perfectionist. I'm unhappy with the way I live. It's hard for me to make a decision. I often get envious of others. I'm irreplaceable at my school. This means like if you believe that things wouldn't work without you in your school. Then seventh sentence says, I often work under time pressure. 8, I don't trust people. 9, it's hard for me to leave worries behind. 10, I'm not physically active enough. And that's your estimation. That's subjective measure if you think what is enough for you. Then I smoke cigarettes, no matter 1 or 2 or 10, whatever. Then I don't sleep well. Again, that is your opinion. If you sleep well, it's subjective measure. Then try to estimate if you are sensitive to noise. Do you suffer from one of these things, rapid heart rate, sweaty palms, stomach pain, and so on? Then try to estimate, do you eat a lot of high-fat foods? And maybe a lot of sweets. Any of these predictors are related to development of stress. So if you have more than 1 or 2 yes answers, yes, maybe you have to think about maybe making some changes about it. How do we develop stress? This is one simple graphicon that shows it. First, let's imagine one situation. For example, something from the classroom. For example, you may have to deal with a very loud group of students. So this is the situation, for example. First, you are estimating, is this situation challenging or maybe dangerous or unpleasant to you? If you estimate that it is challenging in some way to you, then you are going to this secondary evaluation and you are estimating another thing. Can you deal with it? Sometimes you can estimate that you can, sometimes you will estimate that you cannot, and if you estimate that you cannot deal it, then then this would be the beginning of the process of stress development. What is stress? This is one simple definition and says that stress is a general, unpleasant condition, and it's developed when a person evaluates that they cannot deal with the situation. This is something we said in the slide before this one. This is 4 groups of symptoms of stress, and you will try to recognize some of them maybe in your own situation. So here in this first quadrant are weakened cognitive processes. Then there are unpleasant emotions, behavioral changes, and some changes in your health. And they're all, these groups of symptoms are not equal to all of us, but they're also something that is subjective and it's individual. So here we will, okay, this is the emphasizing the, this evaluates, so it's very subjective measure. So the same situation would sometimes be stressful to me, and in some other situation would not. And also one situation could be stressful for me, but not to some other person. It's very subjective. These are some examples, like cognitive symptoms could be something like this. Pessimistic thoughts, forgetfulness, problems with concentration on your work, and so on. Some unpleasant emotions that person under stress could experience are fear, anger, frustration, tension, impatience, and so on. Some behavioral changes that are unpleasant are making a lot of mistakes, hurrying, being late to some appointments and some tasks, and maybe even getting injured because of hurrying all the time. About health, and maybe this is the most serious group of symptoms. Stress is connected with decrease in immune system functioning, and that is then connected with developing some kind of disease, maybe some sleep disorder, maybe some changes in appetite and libido. So when we look all of them, I believe that we can all agree with this. It's better to be safe than sorry, and this is why we are now talking about prevention of stress. So we will talk about 4 types of prevention: preventing some cognitive symptoms, emotional symptoms, behavioral, and health symptoms. So let's start. This is the results of one little school survey that we conducted in our school. We asked teachers to recognize some stressors or causes of stress that are connected with their work. Here at the basis of this pyramid is the biggest stressor, and here is the 5th in this range. There were other stressors, but here are presented only the first 5 stressors. So look at this one. It says keeping full attention constantly at work is the biggest stressor. So as a teacher, you know that you have to keep your attention at students' behaviors, students' assignments, tasks they are doing, maybe some conflicts among them, and so on. And you have to, of course, be careful what are you talking, to not make some mistakes, and so on. So keeping full attention constantly is the biggest stressor that was shown in this school survey. Second one was burnout. So most of the teachers said that they have too much work to do, too much assignments. Then third, too many different assignments. So we are teaching, we are doing in some projects, some activities that are not part of our teaching, and so on and so on. Fourth was poor protection from the institutions, like ministry, agencies, and so on. And here, like a 5th in this range, was unsupportive public attitude toward profession. Maybe you can estimate of these 2, which one would be the biggest stressor for you in your work. It would be also very interesting to analyze your answers today. When we look at all these things, it could seem that there is nothing that we can do about it, but actually that is not true, because we can do some things, and we can maybe do some changes in our habits, in our way of functioning, and that can help us to go through these sometimes very hard schedules. So I would like you to take your paper and to make a little table, just one on the left side and one on the right side. On the left side, you can write all the things that we will talk about and that you are already doing, so they are already your habits. And on the right side, you can write things that you could think of, maybe try to do them, or maybe make some changes about them. So if you are okay with it, you can send me the photo of your paper, or maybe a snapshot, or some other way. I would be very grateful to you, and maybe I can make some interesting analysis. Okay, Mariana is writing, write a table, divide it. Yes. Okay, thank you, Mariana. So, what is a teacher? A teacher is a person who has to be 100% attentive, imagine that, and set an example for the students and the public. It seems very stressful when we say this like this, but we are doing it every day. So, as a teacher, you must build your emotional and mental capacities every day, just as the sportsman has to build his muscle strength if he wants to be a good sportsman, of course. So we have to realize that our emotional and mental capacities should be the priority, and everything else is secondary. We will explain later what does it mean. First things first, this is one, of course, pardon, Mariana is saying something.
Yeah, Nada had already sent us one of her.
Okay, thank you, thank you. First things first, let's see this. Building power means balanced diet, getting enough sleep, relaxation, having fun, dancing, walking, and so on. And working, of course, is wasting energy. This is one simple equation. So we have to keep it in one balance relation. And we will talk about it. So let's start with our first group of symptoms. Symptoms that we call cognitive symptoms. They are about our memory, learning processes, planning, and organization. Now I will remind you to maybe write to the left side what you already do and it is helpful to you, and to the right side something that you could maybe try and to see will it work for you. So, as teachers, you process very, very big number of informations all the time at your work. So when you are taking a break, maybe you should think about taking a break from processing informations. How can you do it? Maybe get rid of unuseful information. Maybe you could think, do you spend too much time on some maybe web portals, social networks, advertising? Of course, they are all very useful to us, and they are some tools that we have to use. But maybe all of us could think, do we maybe spend too much time? And maybe sometimes it could, in that sense, present means like a waste of time. So I'm not saying here, of course, not to use them at all, but to maybe to think about maybe to spend some time less, if it is our case. Maybe here we are here. Maybe you can spend 30 minutes, maybe 15, maybe 20. I don't know. All by yourself. So when you're doing your personal hygiene, maybe taking a nap, walking, exercise, meditating, or something else that makes you feel good, that soothes you, and so on. Then maybe you could think about this if it's something that concerns you. Maybe you shouldn't be available all the time, I mean for work, because this is our topic today. And if you respect your free time, so will the others. Especially now that we are using our emails, our cell phones, and so on, we are actually available all the time, but maybe we could think about to have Mariana is already...
Those are mine. Those are some of mine. So I'm taking some notes while she's talking.
Okay, she's great. So we have to have our time for ourselves, for our family, and not be available all the time. So sometimes we will have to say no to some tasks, to some assignments, of course, in some reasonable amount. These are some tips for organization. I don't know what you think about to-do lists. I personally use them because when we have a big diversity of assignments, it could be very, very helpful. Maybe you don't like lists, but you prefer cognitive maps. That is also something you can do, and that could be your to-do list. And sometimes you will have to accept the possibility that you are not able to do everything. There is too much to do. If you remember earlier, that was one of the biggest stressors. And then you could do a priority list. And sometimes that there will be a situation to discard some tasks that because you don't have time to do everything. You have to rest, you have to spend time with your family, you have to do some private chores and so on. And this is not optional. When you are planning, you have to plan also your leisure time, not just some assignments and some duties. You have to plan also your leisure time. And maybe this is something, okay, this is something that, okay, I will read, never mind. Graphic is slightly different than I planned it, never mind. So when you're doing these lists, it would be nice to use the paper, just as you are using now, to take some notes, and not your cell phone. And I believe you're guessing why, because if you use your cell phone, you will be available for communication, for some new informations that are interesting to you, and one thing will lead to another, and so on and so on. So maybe if you are using cell phone or some applications for schedules and so on, maybe you can try to use old-fashioned way, like paper and pen. Try it. Okay, if you prefer to do cognitive maps, and if you are teaching your students to use them, and you believe they could be helpful, maybe you can use them to plan your day. For example, this could be something like my typical Monday. I have two scheduled meetings. One is with my pedagogue, one is with social worker that will come to school. I have three... okay, pointer. I don't know, can you see when I'm pointing at presentation? Excuse me, we are trying to find the pointer. Pardon, Mariana is helping me.
Ja sam nešto, samo sekund.
Thank you for being patient.
Okay, to je pointer.
Okay, I believe then now you can see this green arrow. I have 3 counselings appointments for that day. One at 9, one at 9:45, one and so on and so on. And I'm doing it 2 projects. Project 1, my biggest and most important thing for the day is to call the project partner. And at project 2, I have to write the schedule and I have to send the draft. And would it go now? Would the presentation go animations now?
Yeah. Okay. They can go, don't worry, you have to click here.
Okay, so you cross off everything that you are finished with and that you've done successfully. You just cross off, because it's very motivating when you see that you've done already some things. Look at this. Look at this. When you are finished with some of your choices, you can cross them off, and you will see how you are progressing for the day. And of course, you deserve a pause. Will it be for 30 minutes, 5 minutes? I don't know, depending on your schedule, but you have to plan the pause. Okay, maybe you like tables more than you like lists, or maybe more than you like cognitive maps and so on. Let's say that today afternoon you have to prepare lessons for the day after, for tomorrow, and it seems like a big assignment. But if you split tasks into sections, for example, I have to prepare lessons for the first grade and for the second grade, and then this task to prepare lessons for the first grade, I will split again on these 3 sections. And of course, when I find my old lesson and I find some new data, and at the end I will update my old lesson, I'm doing this again. First section is done, second section done, third section done, and actually first part, bigger part, is done. And of course, you know what is next. It's pause. It's a break. I will prepare the tea. I will maybe go for a walk or something that makes me feel good, and so on and so on. Now you know how the story goes. Second group of the symptoms of stress was behavioral changes, and we are reacting in our own way. It's very individual changes, and we all have to observe our own behavior. Sometimes our family members or our friends will tell us that they've observed some changes, and they will tell us, and it could be very, very useful to listen to them and to think about it. So One important thing about preventing stress is to be physically active. Maybe you are a sportsman and you will be physically active like this. Maybe you're a dancer, you will be physically active like this. Maybe you will just go for a walk. And if you have the opportunity, you will go for a swim, maybe. And any kind of physical activity is very, very healthy, and it will help you to prevent the stress. Sometimes when we come home from school, of course, we are very, very tired, and we are thinking, I'm too tired to go dancing, I'm too tired to go for a walk, and so on. But actually, we can see them as excuses. Actually, if we are physically active, it will energize us, and it will bring back some energy that we waste. But of course, if you are running to work because you are getting late to your work and you're running, actually that is stressful. That is not this kind of running when you enjoy it and you are running because you like to run, but because if you're running because you have to run, it's actually stressful. That is not something that is preventive activity. Something that you have to do, and maybe I'm reminding you again to your paper and to your left and right side of your table. Do give yourself a credit. Think about it, because you deserve it. And sometimes we forget to do that. We are constantly grading our students. We are telling them about their progress. We are encouraging them and so on. But we should also do it for ourselves. So, when we are planning how to prevent stress and how to spend our day, we should definitely plan activities that makes us feel good about ourselves, and we should be kind to ourselves. So, do not expect that you will be able to do 100% and that you will be able to do every day of the week and so on. Sometimes you will be at maybe 80% of your power, or maybe just 50 and even less, and that's okay. And remember, it's not wrong to think nice about yourself, to know what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, but it's nice to recognize that you are trying to do good your job, that you are learning, that you are helping your colleagues, your students, and so on. And this is one important thing. We shouldn't compare ourselves to others, but we should compare ourselves to ourselves, because maybe I could compare myself with me today and how I was, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, and to see did I make any progress, and that would be the right way to compare ourselves to. For example, maybe this could be your list of successes for the day. Maybe success. Mariana is smiling because that's her favorite word, and we are all using it because of her. Yes. So, for example, maybe you can say that today you were successful at helping your neighbor. Maybe you gave her some advice. Maybe you helped her do some thing about with her house chores and so on. You graded 23 tests. That's a lot. Maybe I helped 4 students. They were here for counseling or maybe for some advice. I was okay at teaching today. Maybe I wasn't great or perfect, but I was okay. And I was planning to do 4 things at my home, but I actually succeeded to do 2, and I'm satisfied with it because it's actually a lot. So, as you can see, I wasn't perfect, I wasn't 100% successful, but I think that I deserve a credit for the things I did accomplish for the day. We are constantly in communication with our students. It's a very important part of our job. And of course with our colleagues, and sometimes with parents of our students and other associates and so on. So we should find a way not to let our private problems interfere with the mood at work. So our students, I'm not saying that we are obligated to feel good all the time and so on. It's normal to change our moods, but we shouldn't let interfering of this kind. We can talk to our colleague, we can talk to some good friend, and it will probably help us. Or maybe to a school counselor, of course. If you disagree professionally, for example, with your colleague about some, I don't know, rule in school, or maybe something connected with the classes and so on, you shouldn't take it personally, because probably it isn't personally, and you should consider that these disagreements are actually something that is part of our profession, and we shouldn't attribute it to ourselves, but we should observe, what does my colleague mean? Why does he sees things differently than me? And maybe learn something from those differences. We should actually understand their own perspective. We should try to be nice to our students and to our colleagues. Ask, can I help you with that? Or how can I help you? Of course, in a reasonable amount. We cannot help everybody at all the time, but at most of the time it would be nice to do it, because then we will keep good social relationships, and that would be helpful to us. And we should all remember maybe not to hold some old grudges, and it is something that is like a burden to us, and it can be very helpful for us to let go of some things, to forgive. Okay, let's go to the third group of symptoms. Those are unpleasant emotional symptoms. Maybe you can remember when you are stressed out, that you are angry, or maybe some kind of depressed mood, or sad, and so on and so on. And it would be good to prevent such feelings, but you have to remember they are also normal part of our experience. It's not unnormal to feel like that sometimes. So, can you estimate which one of these emoticons describes you the best? Is this one, or maybe this one? You have to know that if this is your estimation, try to remember this. It's not usual to be in a bad mood most of the time. Sometimes, of course, it's normal, but if you're in a bad mood most of the time, that is actually very hard for you, and you should consider to find a way how to change that. So this is one of the reasons why we are talking about this subject today. I was trying to find one emoticon that shows maybe my mood the best, and this would be the one, and maybe you will choose this one too now when he's here. Look at this student. She's in a bad mood. She has to study, but she's not successful right now, and so are adults. If you're in a bad mood, you could feel some problems. You will not be productive, and maybe you can use this one and try to deal with the problem first, and after you deal it, then move to, for example, grading schoolwork, because then you will be faster. And if you are trying to, like this student, if you are trying to do some cognitive job while you are in a bad mood, you will be slow, you will be making mistakes, and even worsen your mood. So try to deal first, and then go back to your grading. Okay, let's go back. You remember earlier we said that this is a picture that shows how the stress develops. So primary cognitive evaluation, so secondary, and of course stress development. If we evaluate that we cannot deal the situation, that we do not have enough capacity, nobody can help us, we don't have some resources, and so on. But if you do this when you when your mood changes, when you are feeling better, you could re-evaluate your situation, and maybe these evaluations would be different. So when you are in a different mood, maybe you could see things differently. So let's remember our example of a very loud group of students. So are you seeing this situation as dangerous or challenging? If you are feeling good, maybe you will say, okay, this is a challenge for me. Maybe I'm even looking forward to find some way to deal with it. But if you're in a bad mood, probably you will think that this is challenging. This is a terrible situation. It's very hard to deal with, and I'm actually very sad, or maybe sometimes even angry, because I have to deal that situation. Then, secondary cognitive evaluation, can you deal it? If you're in a good mood, and you will probably estimate that you can deal it, or you could try to deal it, and maybe, okay, I have enough capacity. This is not my first loud group of students. I have some experience. I could ask some older colleagues with more experience in these situations, and so on. But if you're in a bad mood, you could think, okay, there's no way I can do this. This situation is hopeless, and so on and so on. And now you can easily see that if you're in a good mood, maybe this arrow will finish here. So I will say, yes, I have enough capacity. And if you're in a bad mood, maybe this arrow will finish here, and you will start developing stress. So this is why it's important to maybe sometimes reevaluate the situation, talk to somebody, maybe get some advice, and consult maybe some students, not students, your colleagues that have more experience. And of course, there are your school counselor, psychologist, pedagogue, and so on, who can help you. So, I don't know.
Don't be in bad mood when you correct me.
Okay, now we are seeing what Maria says. It's better to wait before grading tests when in a bad mood, of course. Here, maybe this isn't the best example of a nice place, but I believe you are guessing what I was pointing at. It's a tidy room, some nice details. Of course, we don't think the same about nice details, but you know what I have to say, what I'm trying to say. And this is the place not organized. You are losing too much time to find stuff you need, and so on and so on. In this situation, sometimes you can scream, help me, I'm losing too much time, I have no power to try to work in this kind of environment, and so on. So you should decorate your space, maybe some optimistic posters, maybe a flower, a plant, maybe a different color of your walls, and so on. Something that you enjoy and something that you like, so it would be nice to look at. Maybe you can do it at your home, but maybe you can do it in your classroom, in your working space. It could also help you. It's one little step, but it can be something that will help you. One step by step. Okay, if you are doing all the time and you have very little your free time, then you can sometimes find yourself believing that your job is actually your identity. And of course, we all love our jobs and we enjoy, we love working with students, we love teaching, and so on and so on. But our job shouldn't be our identity. Okay, again, assignment for you, for your paper and for your pencil. Try to draw a pie chart and try to analyze what's the percentage of your time that you spend on your chores, and what's the percentage of the time you spend on pleasure. Okay, try to draw it right now. So a pie chart. Okay. Pie chart. Okay, so circle and slices. Two slices.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so this will be one optimistic chart. Now actually emphasizing this one again.
Choice.
Okay, Mariana is having about 90% chores and 10%, 10% pleasure. And what do you say, Mariana, about this one? So, blue ones are choices like grading homeworks, pay the bills, cooking, preparing lectures, and so on and so on.
Cooking, yes.
Okay, you like cooking, okay.
I do.
And the red part, are some things that we like to do at home and enjoying ourselves. Watching favorite TV show, I don't know, reading books, spending time with family, doing crosswords, exercise, meditating, and so on. So let's think about, so of course we are talking about the time at home after work. So this is something that we are trying to point all the time, that we should plan our leisure time, because sometimes we forget to plan it, and we are so occupied with our duties that we actually don't have time to do something from this group of activities. Okay, let's go on. Of course, this is one important thing. Stick to the plan. We could do beautiful plans. They are rich plans. They are
fulfill them.
Of course, we have to fulfill them. And this is the last step. Stick to the plan. Don't forget that one. Then, try to do this. Sometimes, just imagine, maybe something that's not even possible, but you enjoy thinking about it. So imagine and plan some goals that make you happy. Something that makes you feel like this. And try something right now. Try to observe your body posture. Is it something like this? Look at her eyes. Look at her shoulders and try to change your body posture. Try it right now. And sometimes the way we hold, the way our body posture is actually sending a message, let's say, back to the brain. And sometimes it can be also one thing that can change our mood. Have it right now maybe, or maybe later. Let's go to the fourth group of symptoms. Those are symptoms considering your health. Talking to my colleagues, I found out that teachers don't like to stay at home if they're sick. They are always coming to school, and it's really, really serious health situations that when they decide to stay at home.
It's even worse later. It's even worse later. They become recidivists. They can't recover so often, but they think that they have a lot of conscience that if students are going to miss them, or they're not going to do a lot of in the curriculum, and that's why we come to work even when we are feeling poor and very sick.
Yes, thank you.
Easy to say. I understand, Kiri.
Yes, it is easy to say, and we understand it completely. Actually, we are of them. Unfortunately, but it's very important to talk to each other and maybe realize that talking about it can sometimes make a little difference. So, of course, if you are sick, dedicate yourself to healing. That is something that you would tell your friend to do. Don't neglect your health. And if we are sick, we should really cancel some obligations. That we can, of course. And we should see our doctor or maybe psychologist, depending what's the sort of problem. Then, related also with our health, of course, eat balanced diet. Drink enough water, especially because we are talking really, really much every day. But be careful with this one. We shouldn't be rigid. Okay, this is my pointer. Don't be rigid when choosing healthy food or appropriate amount of food, because it could make an opposite, cause an opposite effect, and that could that could become one of the things that will make you worry, and that's not the point, of course. If there's if you have a if you have a need, excuse me, if you have a need to make some changes about your sleeping, you should take some counseling, and we will talk about it just a second. And maybe sometimes your eating habits should be changed. Okay, this kind of drinks are not water that was mentioned here. And of course, coffee. I believe the most of us like coffee, but we should be careful not to drink too many of it, because it can also affect our mood. About sleeping hygiene, some researchers says that we should go to sleep and wake up at approximately at the same time every day. So maybe you can make analyze. Do you have these kinds of habits, or maybe you can do some changes. Then, before going to sleep, we should do relaxing activities. Some researchers says about 2 hours before going to sleep, we should do relaxing activities. So, not eat, Mariana is saying, not eat, not to do some physical activities, heavy physical activities, not grading those 23 tests that we were mentioning before, and so on. Then you probably notice that consuming caffeine and alcohol, or maybe eating too much or being hungry before going to bed will disturb your sleep, and maybe you can think to make some changes here. Your space, your bedroom, has to be airy, quiet enough as you like it, dark as you like it, and at optimal temperature that suit your needs. It shouldn't be too warm or too cold. And your cell phone far away from your body. What does it mean? Not to be available to you, that you can see some new messages, sound signals, and so on, because you have to have your quiet, where is it, quiet, dark room, and you have to be in peace. And try this one if you can. Go to sleep in a good mood. So if you are in some kind of fight, maybe you can deal it, maybe you can postpone some worries and deal with them tomorrow, and so on. So I hope one of these advices could be helpful for some of you. Okay, we are coming almost at the end. We are almost at the end of our presentation. Yes. And now here are 5 things that we can maybe think about changing in our day schedule. For example, some of you maybe noticed that they could do something about their sleeping hygiene to help yourself. Some of you maybe decide to change something about your food. So eat regularly, not skipping meals, I'm sorry, couldn't find the word. Maybe some of you will decide to say no to some new assignments that are too much for you. Maybe some of you will try some relaxation, maybe something physical, maybe some physical activity, maybe meditation. I don't know what are your preferences. Some of you will think again about your free time and maybe make some changes in that sense. But we have to remember that it's not enough just to change our sleeping hygiene, or maybe it's not enough just to implement some relaxation, but we should actually do something about all of these parts of our functioning, because they are cumulative. So, we said earlier that a teacher has to set an example for our students. So this is one of the things that we can be an example to them. And when we are advising them how to study, when to study, how to organize, their time, we shouldn't forget to give them an advice to take some time for fun, rest and relaxation. For example, you can advise your student to learn for an hour and then have maybe going for a walk or going to exercise or maybe playing some games and so on with their friends, and then again learn for an hour and then again some sort of exercise, relaxation and so on. Because having less stress in our life will lead to the less perception of the threat in some situations, everyday situations. If we have less anxiety for our lives, that will be connected to better health and so on and so on. I believe you can see where this is going. And of course, giving an example to our students, it will also be something that we will actually be doing, and we will be preventing the stress for ourselves, and it will be useful for everybody. So, mens sana in corpore sano. Yes, thank you. That's true. So, we are over with our presentation. I would like to thank you all for your attention and for your patience with my English. Thank you very much. And maybe we can all sometimes look up to the cats. They enjoy their leisure time all the time. Okay, that's maybe too much, of course, but sometimes we can be like cats. Maybe sometimes have a nap at the middle in the afternoon, and that will bring us some power. So have a nice day. It was very nice to speak to you, and I hope some of the things you've heard today you will find useful. So Mariana said if you have some questions, I will try to read them and answer as soon as possible. Thank you all for coming.
Yay, thank you so much for coming, and thank you, Helena, for having this wonderful presentation. Unfortunately, I was rather stressful on the other computer posting as Mariana Smolches. That's my secret ID, and CSS moderator. So I think we definitely recognized each other here. There were some great questions in the chat. Only I had two, but don't worry. I will create in the group, as always, a site where you can leave your questions, where you can post your pleasure time. Look, this is me like 50% of chores and 10% of just relaxation. But of course, I'm going to do it even better. But before Helena and I discussed, it was like 95 versus 5. So I'm getting there. Unfortunately, Helena can't stay longer for the Q&A. She has another appointment, another schedule, and she has to travel for more than 100 kilometers to get there in time. So I'm just going to bid you all farewell, and please do the link for the survey. It would be very useful for all of us. And that's it. Thank you all for coming. 130 people from all around Europe. I followed your chats, and I'm just going to take some notes and give Helen, and of course also from the survey you have as an evaluation. Okay. Thank you all so much. Bye. Bye.